I have officially been going about this for 12 hours.
You left your house at 5.
5, yeah, in the morning.
So that means that you've been doing this for well over, over 12 hours.
2:30 in the morning now, and we have people like kind of quite literally falling asleep on the floor. Still haven't even gotten to our bill, which has over 60 people registered to testify.
This has the very designed effect to make people go home because they have pets and kids and responsibilities and a job. And so if you get here at 8 or 10 in the morning to register, you can't stay until, 6 a.m.
It's opened my eyes as to how many roadblocks there are to actually participating in this democratic process and just how upsetting that is. Like, it's really difficult to do. If you work, good luck coming here.
I'm about to testify in front of the Texas House Public Education Committee, and I have been waiting for over 20 hours to do so, to try to fight for the separation of church and state, keeping the 10 Commandments out of being displayed, mandated to be displayed in all Texas classrooms.
Is there a separation of church and state in this country?
That's an interesting question.
This is totally broken.
Since yesterday, I've been coordinating with American Atheists to get people out to testify against a bill called SB 10. Shout out to Will Judy, the Texas State Director of American Atheists here in Texas. He's really done all the real work. I've just kind of signal boosted his stuff. It's funny, I was actually supposed to be on Piers Morgan this morning, but I decided to cancel that last minute to devote my time to doing this instead. Okay, that's kind of true, kind of not true. I was really dreading the Piers Morgan appearance as it got closer because the show is just horrible and I didn't really want to do it very much in the first place. And so I was kind of looking for an out, and this gave me an excuse to cancel it. Hooray! I put out a video this morning talking about the bill. SB 10, aka the 10 Commandments bill, now has a date set for public testimony at the Capitol. That date is Tuesday, April 29th. This bill blatantly violates the First Amendment of our Constitution, but also, as Will says, public schools should remain spaces that respect all Texas families' diverse religious beliefs, or none. If you can, meet me at the Texas State Capitol building at 7:30 a.m. so that we can testify in person, telling our representatives that we don't want this. And since then, I've been bombarded with emails all day. Most of them have been positive, but the first one, it says, all in the subject line, I hate racial slur. I hate another racial slur. I hate another racial slur. And I hope you die. Someone's having a bad day. Some people have said that they're going to come testify with me tomorrow, so I'm just going to document the process. We will see what happens. I got up at 6:30 a.m. and headed to the Capitol. I registered to testify in the John Reagan building and went to an overflow room to watch the hearing, waiting for SB 10 to come up. As soon as I got to the overflow room, someone more experienced with this process than myself told me that they would be surprised if we got out of here by midnight. For this first-timer to this whole thing, that was a pretty big surprise. See, the bills on the docket went out of order from what was publicly listed, so we had no idea how long it would be until we got our chance to testify. They could call us to testify in 20 minutes, or it could be many, many hours from now. This gave us no choice but to stay on the Capitol complex and just wait. After beginning at 8 a.m. and covering just one bill, though, the Committee on Public Education adjourned and all the representatives went to deliberate bills on the House floor. Again, we had no idea how long that would last, so we had no choice but to just stick around. A lot of people showed up after seeing my video, and the first couple of hours passed pretty quickly as we all got to know each other. A subscriber of mine who lived nearby even brought us water and snacks to help us get through the day, even though they couldn't stick around to testify. Thanks, by the way. This had me realize there was no food in the building where we were to testify, no vending machines or anything. How were we supposed to wait an indeterminate amount of time without leaving if there was nothing to eat? As this hit me, a bunch of folks from Texas Freedom Network found our group, brought us a bunch of snacks, and helped us understand what was going on. We'd be waiting for quite a while, but they had places reserved for us to hang out and information on things we could do in the meantime. The first was to attend their press conference.
I am Rabbi Dr. Eleanor Steinman, and I serve as the Senior Rabbi of Temple Beth Shalom here in Austin.
My name is Opneet R, and I am the Senior Education Manager at the
Sikh Coalition, the nation's largest Sikh civil rights organization.
My name is the Reverend Hayden Paul, and I serve as curate of Jubilee Episcopal Church in Austin, Texas.
Legislators are pushing legislation that is retracting further into the underrepresentation and exclusion of Sikhs and students of other and no faiths in public schools.
While this message is being framed as a way of supporting religious freedom, let's be perfectly clear. This bill is not about protecting religious freedom. It's about government control.
These tenets of faith have no place in public classrooms.
Next, Texas Freedom Network, who I'll just call TFN from now on, gave us some information about other bills being discussed in the committee that day, and dear God, these were absurd. SB 10, the bill we showed up to testify against. SB 24 requires instruction on the horrors of communism through a very biased lens. Biased anti-leftist education in Texas, of all places. Who would have imagined? HB 232 gets rid of in-state tuition rates for undocumented students, regardless of how long they've lived in Texas. SB 205 requires instruction on fetal development in schools, because Texans notoriously are really all about embryology. Has nothing to do with being super pro-life. And maybe the most petty one here, SB 2617 requires schools to use AD and BC and defines them as Anno Domini and before Christ, which is a Christian-based definition. I mean, just like how petty can you get? That is so stupid. TFN then let us know that while we waited, we could visit representatives' offices to speak to their staffers about these bills. Our whole group jumped at the chance, and TFN helped us find their offices in the Capitol building. As soon as we walked in, I noticed 3 things. 1, this place is a total maze, and I personally could probably not find these offices effectively without the help of TFN. 2, there are countless hundreds of tall white men in this building that only run in packs of other tall white men, and they all look exactly like the commanders from The Handmaid's Tale. Like, no exaggeration, that's exactly what we all thought they looked like. These guys even had interns running behind them that were all tall white boys who were clearly trying their hardest to look like their bosses. When I mentioned this to others in the group, I was immediately met with, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing, this is really freaky, it's creepy in here. 3, there are so many groups of little kids in Christian t-shirts in here. I stood by one of these groups for a minute, and their tour guide was telling them the history of the building, all steeped in deeply Christian nationalist rhetoric. Anyway, it turns out that some Democrats had co-sponsored the bill to put the 10 Commandments in schools, so we went to their offices hoping they might be willing to be persuaded otherwise. None were there, unfortunately, but we were able to speak with their staffers who were very kind, listened to us, and took notes on what we said to pass along to the representatives. The last office we visited was a very bittersweet experience. The lead staffer spoke with us for as long as we needed and even let us take this selfie with her. But she said something pretty disturbing near the end of our meeting. She said she rarely ever has a group like ours come in to advocate for themselves like this. Usually, she said, the people that come in to speak with her about bills like this are clearly being paid to do so. Now, if you don't know the political landscape in Texas, I'll translate. Well-funded lobbying groups are paying people to visit Democratic representatives' offices to advocate for religious right-wing causes so often that they can even outnumber the regular people who come by. The rise of Christian nationalism is not organic. Wealthy people are paying for it to take over our government, and public consent for this takeover is being purposely manufactured. Alright, at this point it was about 2 p.m. TFN had brought us some pizza at noon, but I wanted to contribute to the snack pile since I'd brought out a lot of the people that were there. Taylor picked up some stuff, and I walked it into the Capitol building where we would wait for the Committee on Public Education to reconvene. At 3 o'clock, we waited, and some speculated that the hearing would start again at 4. Understandably, a few people had to leave by this point since, they'd been there since before 8 a.m. At 4 o'clock, we waited, and some speculated that the hearing would start at 6 or 7. At 5 o'clock, we'd run through our reserved time in the room we were waiting in, so we had to move to another one. I actually think this happened like 3 or 4 times, but I can't remember exact times that we did this. Some speculated at this point that the hearing would start at 8. I was shocked by how much of our crew was still here at this point. Around 6 o'clock, I think most of us expected to be there until the middle of the night. We ate a dinner of yet more snacks and just tried to have fun passing the time. We all talked about the obvious fact that most people simply can't afford to do what we were doing. Hardly anyone can just spend a whole day waiting around to give a 2-minute speech to representatives. So I decided to ask my new friends how they were able to be there.
Greetings, I'm Benjamin Conti. I'm actually an Uber driver, and typically when people take the fewest Ubers are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so this is my little weekend. So I got lucky. That's the only reason I could be here today.
My name is Elvis. I just took the day off from work.
I'm Farron Ellisor. I'm only here because I had today off from work.
I am Kaylee. I'm a university student. I only had one class today and it could be done remotely.
My name is Bethany Epstein. I'm a graduate student and live not too far away from the Capitol.
I'm Anders. I'm a student and it's study days, so I'm pretty free and I just lucked out.
My name is Benjamin Clodfelter. I'm a disabled veteran and I have that stipend that I get from that disability enables me to actually be a part of doing different activism and advocacy work, and that's one of the reasons I get to be here today.
While I was filming these, Anders found that another interesting bill would be discussed in the upcoming hearing.
Furries is mentioned in one of the House bills, HB 54, specifically as an acronym, forbidding unlawful representation of role-playing in educational spaces. Or the Furries Act.
What do you think about the Furries Act?
What the man? Like, this makes no sense. Non-human behavior means any type of behavior or accessory displayed by a student in a school district other than behaviors or accessories typically displayed by a member of the Homo sapiens species, including A, using a litter box for the passing of stool, urine, or other human byproducts. B, a personal or outward display, except during a school play or by a school mascot, through surgical or superficial means or features that are non-human, such as tails, leashes, collars, or other accessories designed for pets. Fur,
People think that these legislators think that people are having tails surgically sewn onto them?
Listen, this is a real problem facing America.
The way that they're trying to justify it is by claiming that it's sexual in nature. Photos of like school students as animals, it seems like they're trying to classify that as pornography.
The dog filter was everywhere on Snapchat when I was like late on in high school, you know? Like everyone was using that.
And was that sexual or pornographic in some way?
No. Literally the main academic ramification from this bill is going to be that a full % of high school valedictorians are going to be carted out of the school by state patrolmen for saying good meowing in calculus class.
Big God. Wait until somebody explains to these guys what kink culture is, and they have to contend with the fact that almost anything is sexual under some situation.
I think they already know. I mean, have you all seen the Grindr numbers when the RNC pops into town?
Yeah, so at this point, our suspicions were affirmed that the people in power, those members of the Texas legislature that were sponsoring and or defending these bills, were absolute morons. Or they're so corrupt and cruel that they have to invent ridiculous, clearly fake problems for public schools so they can push through their real agenda, defunding public education by any means necessary. And you know, it's probably the latter, although the furries thing was a really, really stupid and creepy way of doing that, as you'll see as we continue into this video. Yeah, I guess a lot juicier with the furries bill.
Okay, it's 7:30 p.m. I have officially been going about this for 12 hours. How long have other people been here?
I left at 5.
You left your house at 5?
5, yeah, in the morning.
And so you've been here for...
Since 8. So since the first meeting was the first bill at 8 a.m.
So that means that you've been doing this for well over, over 12 hours.
Yeah.
You've been on the road and here. And
Over, yeah. If you count the trip, the trip here.
Do you think if we go until midnight or something, you think that you'll be able to stick around, or what do you think from here?
That's what I'm debating right now.
Yeah.
Or they are.
Yeah, that's fair.
At 8 o'clock, TFN brought us some incredible food from a Palestinian restaurant called Peace Bakery and Deli. If you're in Austin, Texas, you've got to eat there. I've already gone and gotten more myself. It's insanely good. 9 o'clock, more folks start to head home.
You guys got to go, which is understandable because it's 9 p.m. and you've been here since like 12:30. Yeah.
It's not a 3-hour drive.
Oh my, you're going like 3 hours away.
Yeah.
From here.
Even though I didn't get to testify like I wanted to, I still found this to be a really valuable experience, especially because it's opened my eyes as to how many roadblocks there are to actually participating in this democratic process, and just how upsetting that is. Like, it's really difficult to do if you work. Good luck coming here. Like.
Then suddenly, we get the call. The hearing will begin at 9:30 p.m., 13 and a half hours after it started. I'm excited. We rush back to the Reagan building where the hearing will be held. But some more experienced people let me know 62 people have registered to testify against SB 10, the 10 Commandments bill. They're absolutely going to put this off to the very end. There are over 20 other bills they have to get to first. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I was averaging like 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night in the days preceding this whole ordeal. I was trying to keep people's spirits up by not showing it, but by 10:30, I was getting delirious and was starting to experience what it's like to go without the nerve pain suppressing medication that I take around that time every night. It sucked, but my friends kept me pushing through.
What's up, guys? Good evening. It's like 10:49 p.m.
At 11:30 p.m., the goofiest I have ever seen in my life went down.
Chair offers a committee substitute and recognizes Representative Gertis to explain the bill. When reports of the presence of a furry in the school surfaced in Smithville ISD, my hometown, I immediately grew concerned.
You claimed, quote, schools have been provided litter boxes for students identifying as animals. Respectfully, Representative Gertis, we bring bills that solve problems. And when you introduced this bill, you said schools have even provided litter boxes for students identifying as animals. I'm asking.
And that's what we've gotten some reports of. Did I go to these school districts and visit and see it with my own eyes? No.
And what school districts reported this?
That we got reports from?
Uh-huh.
We got reports from. Smithville confirmed they could not have one.
Yeah, because you mentioned Smithville in your layout.
You can't really hear it in the footage, but I can only describe the audience's reaction to this as sleep-deprived cry laughing.
If a student eats Cheetos and then licks the cheese dust off their fingers, would that be considered licking oneself?
Yeah, that's not a non-human behavior. If you're licking your fingers because you got food on them, that's kind of in line with a normal behavior.
But you're defining non-human behavior as licking oneself or others.
If it's in this non-human behavior realm, the intent of the bill is for licking oneself for the grooming purposes, like a cat.
So who decides whether the licking is non-human behavior? Is that the Attorney General's job if your bill becomes law?
The local school districts come up with their plan.
But all there needs to be is one complaint, and the Attorney General, the top cop in the second largest state in the union, is now tasked with investigating that behavior. What if a kid went to the Alamo with their family over the weekend and bought a Davy Crockett fur hat from the gift shop? Would wearing that hat be considered wearing fur?
It's wearing fur, but the school districts have a plan on, do they allow hats in the school?
So if a student is reading Animal Farm and they oink like a pig or neigh like a horse, would they be subject to a $10,000 fine?
No, because that's in line with if it's in line with the curriculum that the
Is that in your bill? Is it true that school districts are fined up to $10,000 for the first violation?
Yes.
And is it true that school districts can be fined up to $25,000 for subsequent violations?
That's what the bill states.
In this version of the bill, is there any accountability for false accusations?
No.
Just a year ago, an individual accused one of the school districts I represent, actually the school district I grew up in, Round Rock ISD, of lowering lunch tables so that students could eat like dogs. Beyond the absurdity of that, the superintendent had to make clear that the school lunch tables could not even physically be lowered. But those false allegations caused serious harm to our school district and took time and attention away from the classroom, away from teaching and learning. We are spending precious legislative time toward the end of this legislative session on a bill called the Furries Act. And honestly, Representative Gertis, this whole thing is just weird and honestly a little creepy. And I think that's the point, because this is all, in my opinion, a manufactured debunked smear campaign against our Texas public schools. And it's not just you. I mean, Governor Abbott has used this litter box rumor to paint our schools in the worst possible light. He even used the litter box conspiracy theory to push his private school voucher bill. And so I think that's because if you want to defund neighborhood schools across the state, you have to get Texans to turn against their public schools. So you call librarians groomers, you accuse teachers of indoctrination, and now you say that schools are providing litter boxes to students. That's how all of this is tied together. That's how I see this bill. It's how a lot of educators across our state see this bill as part of a smear campaign.
We survived off of snacks for another couple of hours after this, but at 1:30 a.m., a few more people just couldn't stay any longer, understandably.
Goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. This guy's been here since 8 a.m. And, you know, you can't blame a guy for leaving at 1:30 in the goddamn morning.
This is when shit got really real. The waiting became grueling.
2:30 in the morning now, and we have people kind of quite literally falling asleep on the floor. Still haven't even gotten to our bill, which has over 60 people registered to testify. I highly doubt 60 people are still here. I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, I think that we're predicting that we might start testifying at 4 a.m.
At 2:40 a.m., we got some news.
The public comment portal will be open until 5 p.m. Wednesday for SB 10. Testimony will be closed at 6:45 a.m. They said that they won't be able to get to everyone. That's also based off of who's signed up already, not based off of who's physically here.
Okay, so it's still a wait and see, who knows?
But I think we're gonna get through this by 6:45 a.m. I do.
Certainly hope so. That would be 23 hours of waiting for me.
This was my lowest point morale-wise. I had to decide if I could make it to 6:45 a.m. and not even be allowed to testify. At 3:15 a.m., I went to the bathroom just to be alone and listen to a song that always motivates me when I need it. It's called Pansa Pansa by Afrobeat founder Fela Kuti.
No justice, no happiness, then go here. Pansa, pansa, hey!
I also recorded this.
3:30 a.m. update from the Texas State Capitol men's bathroom. Do Republican men wash their hands after taking a sh**? My data set of a handful suggests.
Finally, at 3:42 a.m., the committee gets to SB 10, our bill. We rush into the room where the hearing's being held.
Chair lays out Senate Bill 10 by Senator King related to the display of the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms. The chair recognizes Representative Noble to explain the bill.
Meet Representative Candy Noble, a woman who argues like J.D. Vance with a voice like Jill Duggar.
They most talk about the way we must treat others as a society. The way we treat others as a society comes from the principles found in the 10 Commandments. In these days of classroom mayhem, it is time to return to the truth.
So is your objective to pass along that religious tradition to children who are in the classroom and see the 10 Commandments on the wall?
My objective is for children, our school children, to understand why God is mentioned in the first two paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence and the last two paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence and other founding father documents, why it's infused in our laws, that the principles of having an authority that is God, that we keep our word because not just because we're having a relationship with others, but because God is watching. I think that those are fair principles to consider even today. But without that foundation, how do they understand those early documents of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and those early and court cases, by the way? Because otherwise, why not kill somebody? Why not take their belongings?
Because God is watching, right?
Well, That's what I consider to be
Well,
true, and that is certainly our foundation. Our forefathers did, and that's where that's coming from.
So our objective is a religious objective.
Our objective is an educational and judicial objective.
Notice that she says that the Ten Commandments need to be in schools to provide moral and religious instruction, but when she's called out for that unconstitutional goal, she suddenly changes up and says, this bill is about history, that's all. This is a very common Christian nationalist tactic, and is, ironically, a violation of the Ninth Commandment, which prohibits lying. And in case it wasn't obvious enough, this woman made it clear why she wanted the Ten Commandments in public schools.
26% of the people in Texas are not religious.
I would concur with that, but that doesn't mean that they would not be better by learning about our forefathers and what was important to them.
So let me move to this question: is there a separation of church and state in this country?
That's an interesting question that has been debated a great deal. But what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to quote some of our earliest forefathers. Do you think that our forefathers, when they wrote these words, were thinking about a separation? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Government was not made for man. It was made by God for man. And that's what our forefathers understood in a way that we would love for our school children to understand, that we aren't government, that God gave us the rights and the privilege of governing.
Again, you couldn't hear it, but at this point, since the room was filled with no one but those who were there to testify against this bill, everyone let out an audible gasp, followed by nervous laughter.
Mr. Chairman,
I love that.
I'm sorry, but can we just have people in the audience be respectful of the people that are speaking and not ridicule whoever or whatever side they are on? I know I'm getting cranky at 4, but that's just really uncalled for.
Absolutely. We need to maintain decorum in here and give people the respect that they deserve. We have a conversation going on here.
I get that they have to maintain decorum to get stuff done efficiently here, but when someone reveals that they are purposely advocating for a theocracy in the country created to prevent theocracy, I think some audible reactions of disgust are warranted.
Well, so actually, we've covered Thomas Jefferson, George Washington during his administration. We had the Treaty of Tripoli, which was ratified unanimously by the U.S. Senate and then signed later by John Adams, also a founding father. And that treaty said the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Do you disagree with President Washington or President Adams?
I don't know that you're quoting them correctly. Again, I have some scholars here that can better answer your specific questions, and I am not that person.
Okay.
And I really think that you're taking offense that someone wouldn't take from a historical perspective.
Well, again, we established that our founding fathers wanted a separation of church and state. But,
I did not establish that. I absolutely did not establish
historical
that.
fact established that.
I disagree with that.
As a Christian myself, I consider Hindu students, Jewish students, Muslim students, atheist students to be my neighbor.
Absolutely.
And we, as Christians, are called to love them as ourselves. And I think forcing one religious tradition down their throats is not love. I do want to close out what I was saying, which is that I hear from young people, Gen Z, my fellow millennials, all the time who really do long for genuine faith communities, but they see modern religion as performative. They see religious leaders who are all about power, all about being better than others. And my worry is that by leveraging our power as legislators to elevate one religion over the rest, especially in front of our children, that's the kind of stuff that gives religion a bad name. And in this country, it's what gives Christianity a bad name.
I find
and so I'm just going to close out because I know the time is running short. But I think for those whose goal is, with this bill, to create a new generation of Christians, I think it will actually have the opposite effect. And I worry that these kinds of bills will actually create a new generation of atheists who think our religion is more about power than love. And that's my primary concern with this bill. So
I think you're impugning my motivations in a way that's very offensive to me, and I'd rather you didn't.
Next, these guys came in. I had not seen them anywhere in the building or complex before this. These guys were invited rather than public testimony, which means that one or more of the representatives in the committee asked them to come speak. I guess it also means that someone on the inside was able to notify them as to when they would be needed. They didn't have to wait around for 20 plus hours to make sure they didn't miss their opportunity. Oh, and they didn't have to take off work to do this because this was their job.
My name is Elijah O'Neill, and I serve as manager of education for the American Journey Experience Museum in Irving, Texas. And I'm here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 10. I'm honored to be here with y'all on behalf of First Liberty Institute, the nation's largest organization dedicated solely to defending and advancing religious liberty in the country. And I'm here to speak in favor of Senate Bill 10.
This guy, Representative Jeff Leach, kept these people talking and talking and talking. The invited testimony, all in favor of putting the Ten Commandments in public schools and in explicit opposition of the separation of church and state, lasted well over an hour, until 5 a.m. Now, finally, after 21 hours, we got our chance. Public testimony began. Out of about 18 people who showed up to testify after seeing my video, 4 were left. Anders, Farron, Bethany, and Ben, you all are indomitable. Thank you for sticking it out and keeping me going.
I want the next years of students, I want my younger siblings and my future children to share the very same freedom to explore without constraint that I had, and to come conclusions about history, literature, and importantly to me, science, without presuppositions, undue influence, or subliminal persuasion.
Beyond that, it also forces the tax dollars of non-Christians to go to schools to fund an institution that now must represent the Ten Commandments within them. I should not have to explain further why you should vote no on this. This bill is not about tradition or history, it is about religious primacy. Forcing students to accept one religion over another, or religion over the lack thereof, violates their freedom of conscience to develop their views on religion, no matter how trivial the differences may appear.
Vote no for atheist children in this state. Vote no for Muslim children in the state. Vote no for the children who do or don't practice any religion in this state. And yes, that means vote no for Christian children.
I was really, really looking forward to putting up my 2-minute testimony on my channel as a short. But filmed like this, it's not engaging at all. I really don't know if this is intentional. I honestly don't. But yeah, this seriously bothered me as someone who knows social media is key to winning any political battle now. Regardless of the angle, I hope you enjoy my little testimony. My name is Drew McCoy. I'm a lifelong Texan and come from a family of Christian missionaries on both sides, 4 generations. We read the Bible together regularly when I was a child, and I came to absolutely love studying it, often bombarding my authority figures with questions. If SB 10 passes, curious children will no doubt ask their teachers about the conspicuous new 10 Commandments displays, and that's the point, isn't it? What will they ask? Surely some 6- and 7-year-old children will wonder about a word that's new to them. Teacher, what does adultery mean? What should the teacher say to that? Should they explain or even dare to mention the sex acts involved in that sin? Or rather, should they mislead the child to avoid scandal that would result from their honesty? Teacher, what is a graven image? Should the teacher explain that it could refer to images of veneration such as those hung up in our halls of power? Maybe not in this room, but you know what I'm saying. And now, because of SB 10, framed for display in our classrooms. Or rather, should they mislead the child again? When asked, teacher, what's the story behind the 10 Commandments? Should teachers tell your child that most biblical scholars think, well, the Exodus story is a more
mythical story, that it didn't literally happen? Should they tell them what Jesus said about the commandments in Matthew 5:17? I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And how will they interpret that contentious passage? Will they interpret it in a Jewish or Christian or some other way? Texas teachers are clever. They can often handle hard questions. But I know that most Texans would prefer that parents, that families, that religious leaders answer such questions from children.
Thank you very much.
There were other testimonies after mine, but most who were called up were no longer there, not after an entire day of waiting. This, in my mind, was exactly what the senior representatives in the committee intended. Speaking of those guys, as soon as testimonies ended, Representative Leach made a beeline for me and my crew.
We three all got a direct invitation from Representative Leach to go to coffee, got his personal cell phone number, and he told us if he was 100% serious, he completely meant it. And when you put us next to each other, I wonder why he might have asked us and no one else. I'm kind of leaning toward doing it and seeing whether or not he can turn us against everybody that we love and care about.
Feel obligated towards him. I'm curious as to what he even thinks he can say to sway us personally, because I know that all of us have very strong conviction. We've been here for 22 hours. So I'm curious, to say the least.
Finally, although it was past 6 a.m. at this point, I had to ask someone before I left if they also thought that making us all wait almost a full day to testify against their bill was intentional.
My name's Sophia Monto, and I'm the board president of Hands Off Central Texas.
I've heard so many people say today that their representatives, or at least people who have seniority on the committees, put this off, the most contentious bill off to the very end, 22, 23 hours off, so that people go home, so that people don't testify against it, basically to kind of squash opposition. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. So this is a well-known fact that, we saw this with the voucher bill a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, and that testimony was 22 hours. And they put it off. So one of the things that happens is the Texas election season is only 6 months. It happens every year and a half. It's only 6 months. So they're trying to cram in hundreds of bills and hundreds of committee meetings. So they schedule multiple committee meetings at the same time so that only half the committee is there at a time. They also schedule it where they have to adjourn, and this will happen more and more as the weeks roll towards the end of the session. They have to adjourn for the whole day so they can go vote on a bunch of floor bills, and then the committee gets put off to the end as almost an afterthought. But this has the very designed effect to make people go home because they have pets and kids and responsibilities and a job. And so if you get here at 8 or 10 in the morning to register, you can't stay until, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. right now?
Yeah, it's 6 a.m.
Yeah,
now.
so,
Most 8 a.m. yesterday.
Exactly. And I would say for this one particularly, almost half of the people that registered to vote, they did not stay because they could not stay. And in 2 hours, committees are going to start meeting again, and people are going to come in to register to testify against those. So it's really this relentless system that does not help our representative democracy, and it does not help pass good legislation.
Then I got an Uber home, listened to an extremely racist rant from the driver on the way, and finally walked in the door almost 24 hours after leaving.
I just got home. It's 7 in the morning. I've been up for 26 hours or something like that, just to give a 2-minute testimony. With how that went, I would guess it's going to pass. This is totally broken.
What is there to be learned from this experience? 1, this system is not built for regular people to engage in. It is not truly democratic. You can't blame people for not being engaged with the system when the system is not actually democratic in the first place. 2, Christian nationalist bills like this get through because they're supported by groups and individuals with tons of money. Most people, religious or not, do not want legislation like this. but we're too bogged down trying to survive to spend time fighting it. 3. Nonprofits like Texas Freedom Network and American Atheists are the only reason any of us made it to and through this whole ordeal. Supporting them is one of the best ways I can think of to help regular people fight Christian nationalism. We, people who don't want Christian nationalism, do have the numbers. We just need support to get us plugged in. You'll find links in the description to go donate to them. Do it. They deserve it. Now, to every single one of you who showed up to testify, no matter if you made it these 22 hours, you make me proud. You should be proud of yourselves. I hope to see you all again under better circumstances, and if you ever see me, just walking around in Austin, come give me a hug. I hate to end it this way, but SB 10 passed the committee. It's now on its way to be deliberated on the Texas House floor, and if and when it passes there, it's law. Until, that is, it's challenged by a higher court and either overturned or sent to the U.S. Supreme Court, which, in all likelihood, may very well deem it constitutional. This is what Republicans are trying to make happen, actually. But, on a positive note, I can say that if we continue to descend into a Christian nationalist hellscape as the ultra-wealthy bastards intend, I now have a little crew here in Austin that is dead set on fighting for religious freedom. If you can't say the same, I suggest you begin building that for yourself right now. All right, thanks for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. A special thanks to my patrons for their constant love and support, and praise be unto Our Lady, River, my top patron and official savior of this channel. If you want to support my work, subscribe and check out the religious studies courses I produce with Dr. Joseph Laycock. They're attached to the video below. As always, if you are an apostate in need, there are resources linked in the description to help you find community and mental health support. Remember to be kind to others in the comments, and until next time, stay skeptical.